I'm Amirul Aiman. Here are tonight's top stories. Donald Trump says he will put an end to the fighting along the Cambodia-Thailand border, and Cambodia withdraws its team from the SEA Games in Thailand amid escalating border tensions. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. Thailand and Cambodia clashes that began on Monday have escalated rapidly, with both countries trading blame and dismissing the possibility of a diplomatic breakthrough. Thailand's foreign minister says there was no potential for negotiations, calling conditions unsuitable for third-party mediation. But a senior advisor to Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet told Reuters Phnom Penh was ready to talk at any time. Cambodia reports 9 civilians killed and 20 seriously injured since Monday, while Thailand says 4 soldiers have been killed and 68 wounded. The latest clashes comes after months of rising tensions and has forced mass evacuations on both sides of the border. Now, US President Donald Trump says he will personally make a phone call to stop the fighting and save a fracturing ceasefire he was involved in July. Speaking in Pennsylvania, Trump claimed credit for stopping multiple global conflicts and said he would make a phone call to halt fighting between Thailand and Cambodia.
And I hate to say this, one named Cambodia-Thailand, and it started up today. Tomorrow I'll have to make a phone call, and I think they'll get it. Who else could say, I'm going to make a phone call and stop a war of 2 very powerful countries?
Cambodia has pulled its entire sporting delegation out of the Southeast Asian Games in Thailand after renewed fighting along the border between the two countries. The National Olympic Committee of Cambodia informed organizers on Wednesday, saying the decision was made for safety reasons.
In a letter to the SEA Games Federation, its chief, Vav Chamrun, said families of the athletes had asked for their relatives to come home immediately. He added that the move was not taken lightly and apologized for the disruption. The Games opened in Bangkok on Tuesday and run until the 20th of December. But the long-standing border dispute has overshadowed the event. Cambodia had already withdrawn from 8 sports before the opening ceremony.
That's the headline for tonight. More news coming up shortly after the break.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the country is ready to hold elections within 3 months, but only if the United States and other allies can guarantee the security of the votes. His comments follow renewed pressure from US President Donald Trump, who suggested Kyiv was using Russia's war on Ukraine as an excuse to delay elections.
Zelensky rejected the accusations that he is clinging to power, calling Trump's claim totally inadequate. Wartime elections are currently prohibited under Ukrainian law, and Zelensky's elected term expired last year. He said he will ask Parliament to draft legislation that would allow voting to take place under martial law. Earlier this year, Ukraine's parliament overwhelmingly backed a resolution affirming the legitimacy of Zelensky's continued tenure, saying the constitution allows presidential elections to be deferred during wartime.
Hamas is calling for greater international pressure on Israel before it moves to the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire. Senior Hamas official Hussam Badran says the plan cannot advance while Israel continues to violate the agreement and evade its commitments, urging Israel to open key border crossings, halt deadly strikes and allow more aid into the war-devastated Strip. The demands comes as Israel signals it is ready to enter the next stage of the US-backed 20-point peace plan. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to meet US President Donald Trump on December 29th to discuss the plan's next steps, insisting for guarantees of Hamas disarmament. The ceasefire, in effect since October 10th, has so far focused on a hostage prisoner exchange and a partial withdrawal of Israeli forces. But key issues, including Gaza's future governance, the potential deployment of an international stabilization force, and the creation of a board of peace, remain unresolved. Now in its second month, the truce remains fragile, with both sides trading accusations of violations and Israeli strikes persisting. Meanwhile, Gaza's humanitarian crisis deepens, with the United Nations and aid groups warning that far too little aid is entering the enclave. The United States has, for the first time, criticized China for targeting Japanese military aircraft with radar during a training exercise last week. The incident near Japan's Okinawa Islands comes amid rising tensions in the region, following remarks by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi on how Tokyo might respond to a potential Chinese attack on Taiwan.
A State Department spokesperson said China's actions are not conducive to regional peace and stability, and reaffirmed Washington's unwavering support for its ally, Japan. Japanese officials welcomed the comments as a sign of a strong US-Japan alliance. Tokyo criticized the radar targeting by Beijing as unacceptable and dangerous. The move is widely considered a hostile act or provocation in military and diplomatic contexts. Beijing, however, denied any wrongdoing, saying Japanese planes had repeatedly approached and disrupted Chinese Navy training.
Australia has become the first country to ban social media for children under 16, a move that may trigger a broader wave of regulation around the world. From midnight, 10 major platforms, including TikTok, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, must block access for anyone under the age limit or risk fines of almost 50 million Australian dollars.
Tech companies and free speech groups say the ban goes too far and will be tough to enforce. Parents and child safety advocates say it is long overdue. The government argues it had to act because the tech industry has been too slow to tackle online harms.
This reform will change lives for Australian kids and allowing them to just have their childhood. For Australian parents, enabling them to have greater peace of mind. But also for the global community who are looking at Australia and saying, well, if Australia can do it, why can't we?
Governments from Denmark to Malaysia and several states in the US, where some trust and safety features are being scaled back, say they are preparing similar measures. Though the ban applies to 10 platforms for now, the Australian government says the list will shift as new apps emerge and young users move to different spaces.
Amazon is set to invest more than $35 billion in India by 2030, aiming to boost artificial intelligence, expand logistics and increase exports. The move comes as global tech giants deepen their presence in Asia's third largest economy.
The company said the investment will create 1 million new jobs and help Indian sellers increase exports from $20 billion over the past decade to $80 billion by 2030. The move comes as other global tech giants deepen their presence in India. Microsoft has pledged $17.5 billion to expand AI and cloud infrastructure, while Google plans around $15 billion over the next 5 years to build AI data centers. India's rapidly growing digital market is increasingly seen as a strategic hub for AI, cloud computing, and deep tech growth.
The Trump administration has announced plans to require all foreign visitors to provide 5 years of social media history when entering the United States. The proposal, published in the Federal Register, would apply to all new arrivals, including travelers from visa waiver nations such as the United Kingdom and Germany, who currently rely on the electronic system for travel authorizations. This move forms part of a broader tightening of US entry rules promised by President Donald Trump. Under the proposal, visitors will be required to submit additional personal information, including email addresses, telephone numbers, and details of family members contacted within the past 5 years. The changes come as the US prepares to host FIFA World Cup events next year, a period expected to bring large numbers of visitors from visa waiver countries. These measures follow steps taken in June when the State Department introduced rules requiring some visa applicants to make their social media profiles publicly accessible. Washington is warning that its trade deal with Indonesia may be at risk of collapse, accusing Jakarta of backtracking on key terms of the agreement. US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer reportedly believes Indonesia is backsliding on several commitments it had made. This includes removing non-tariff barriers on US industrial and agricultural exports, as well as on its pledges related to digital trade.
US President Donald Trump announced the deal in mid-July, lowering a proposed reciprocal tariff rate on Indonesia to 19%, down from the 32% threatened in a letter sent earlier that month. According to Trump, Indonesia had committed to buying $15 billion in American energy, $4.5 billion in agricultural products, and 50 Boeing jets. It is not the first instance of friction between Washington and Jakarta over trade talks. In November, the Financial Times reported that Indonesia had rejected a U.S. poison pill clause, a provision accepted by some Southeast Asian countries, including Malaysia, which would allow Washington to revoke a trade deal if a partner country entered into any agreement deemed damaging to U.S. interests.
China's economy is projected to grow by 5% in 2025 before slowing to 4.5% in 2026, according to the International Monetary Fund. Its latest assessment shows an upward revision of 0.2 and 0.3 percentage points from its October forecast, citing resilience despite multiple shocks in recent years. The fund pointed out that China had rolled out stimulus measures and benefited from lower than expected tariffs on its exports. It added that while the economy has remained stable, it continues to face imbalances, including a prolonged property sector adjustment, spillovers to local government finances, weak domestic demand, and deflationary pressures. In the first 11 months of this year, China's trade surplus hit a record $1 trillion. But the IMF warns that such export-driven growth may not be sustainable as global demand softens. It urged Beijing to shift toward a consumption-led growth model instead of dependence of exports and investment. US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer says he is open to treating South Africa differently from other African nations if Washington extends the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. Greer says the Trump administration supports a one-year AGOA extension but sees South Africa as a unique case and could consider excluding it if Congress pushes in that direction.
AGOA, a law first passed in 2000 that provides duty-free access to the U.S. market for thousands of products, expired in September. Greer said that Pretoria must lower tariffs and remove non-tariff barriers on U.S. products if it wants Washington to roll back its 30% duties on South African goods. South Africa's Trade Ministry told Reuters it remains committed to being part of any AGOA extension and will continue lobbying for the initiative to be renewed in its current form. Tensions between the two countries have escalated in recent months. Washington boycotted a G20 leaders summit hosted by Pretoria last month and has said South Africa will not be invited to next year's G20 summit in Miami. This after US President Donald Trump accused South Africa's government of committing white genocide, a claim Pretoria widely rejects.
That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Amirul Aiman. Thank you for watching. Good night.